Jimbo Paris, and you are listening to The Jimbo Paris Show. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to The Jimbo Paris Show. Today we have Kesha Chanel. She is focused on helping women build confidence, and she essentially went through a lot, and she overcame it too, which is most important. And throughout that journey of overcoming those things, she became a coach, a speaker, and a healer. So again, she's done a lot, and I definitely am interested in learning a lot more about her. So again, how are you doing, Kesha?
Fantastic, Jimbo. How are you? Hi, everybody.
Hey. So, to get this started, can you give me a bit of a gist of who you are, what you're about, and what your message is?
I am Kesha Chanel, and I am an abundant life coach, author, speaker, and healer, and I help women rebuild confidence and overcome what took it. I've survived all different kinds of trauma. You name the trauma, I probably survived it. And I wrote a book called I Feel Better Already to help people get through it. And because of basically the way the world is right now, so many people are hurting and they just want to feel better. And they want to feel better from all different types of things, from all different things that have gotten them down. So because I've survived so many different things, I just wanted to help lift people up.
Hmm. All right. So, what motivated you to sort of embark on this journey of sort of helping women out?
I think what has embarked my journey for this particular book is when I recognized that when I was molested, that was the root of all my self esteem issues because I had been through a lot of different things divorce, and so many different losses, parents, pets, different things, and being an empty nester. And I lost my kids leaving the house. I just realized that, the root of how I felt about myself, how I saw the world was because the lens through which I saw myself and the lens through which so many people with trauma see themselves is changed. The ages of 3 to 7 or 3 to 8 is when our identities and our personalities and our core beliefs are formed. And if you are hurt as a child, the way that you see yourself and the way that you see the world is skewed. You see the world and you see people as bad. You see yourself as bad. You see yourself as alone. You see yourself as hurt. So when I recognized this about myself, that this is what happened, met different people in my coaching journey, I met different people in my healing journey, I realized that so many people's story is the same. So many people. And so it's just like, we can't blame our parents because our parents did the best that they could at the time. Especially when I became a parent, it's like I realized I did the best that I could, and my kids weren't perfect either, and I wasn't a perfect parent either. So it's just like we all need a freaking healing journey, and that's what I wrote my book to be, and that's what it was just like. Yeah, we freaking need some help. We all just need to feel better.
So, I think one big word is definitely trauma. Well, what is trauma? How did it sort of affect you, and how did you overcome it to become the woman that you are today?
But trauma is when you go through anything, and I think that a lot of people, when they hear the word trauma, they think, "Oh, that's not me. I don't have trauma." They want to use that word. Anything that hurts you, anything that changes the way that you see yourself, changes the way that you see the world, it's trauma. Okay. But it's anything that you struggle with. It can be depression, it's anxiety, it's childhood sexual abuse, which was mine. It could be physical abuse, it could be emotional abuse, it could be grief, loss of a parent, loss of a pet, any kind of thing that you've been through that hurts your heart and you graze over. You're like, oh, that happened. Yes, I'm sad about it. Okay, I'm moving on. I'm going to stuff that down and keep going. That kind of thing. When you just stuff it down and keep going, the thing, all it does is just hide. It doesn't go away. It just hides. So that is trauma.
Now, childhood abuse,
Mhm.
that must be a very tough thing to deal with. And I know this might be a difficult topic to discuss, but as much as maybe you addressed in your book, would you be willing to kind of talk about how you sort of overcame that?
How I overcame it is with my book. And again, and that's why I wrote the book. I went through 5 feeling steps, and the way that you overcome anything, the formula I have is called the Feel Better formula, and it's a 5-step process to healing from anything, any kind of trauma. And the first step that you have to do is accept it. A lot of times, like I said, we push things down. When you push things down, all it is denial. And denial is a beautiful fantasy until it's not. Because until you face the thing, whatever it is that hurt you in the beginning, whatever made you feel bad, and actually, even this just the reality of your right now, the reality of so many people's right now hurts. And they might see somebody else doing really, really well, and they just want to pretend that it doesn't exist, or they just want to pretend that everything's okay and not reach out to people, or just not even accept the reality of whatever is wrong. But when you accept things, and when you accept the fact that you can't do it by yourself, and when you accept that you're doing the very best you can and it's not quite enough, that's when you can start healing. So in order to address anything, in order to heal from anything, you first have to accept it. And that's the first step of my healing journey. And so once I accepted everything, then I had to decide what to do about it. Now, the decision part is a whole nother level, because you can accept all this stuff. It's like, yes, I'm not being treated well. Yes, my finances suck. Yes, I'm fat. Whatever it is that you have to accept the reality of, you have to decide what you're going to do about it. And you can actually choose and decide to do nothing. You can decide to sit in that pain. You can decide to sit in that place because it's familiar, because it's comfortable, because you don't want to do anything about it, because you're scared to freaking death. Acknowledge that, know that it's okay, and decide to do nothing. Or you can decide to move on, to be the very best thing that God has for you, to see yourself in a whole nother light. You can decide to have this thing that that you feel deep down in your heart, that you can have more and be more and do more. You can decide that as well, but your decision is completely up to you, because you're the only one that has to live with it, and you are the only one that actually has to do the work. So the second step is to make the decision. The third step is to release any kind of blame, shame, any kind of pain that comes from that, because either you decide to stay comfortable or you decide to move forward. Both decisions bring up so much emotion. It could bring so much shame. It could bring up so much pain. It could bring up so much fear of just trying to do that thing. And you take 2 steps forward and 2 steps back. All that stuff, that you have a lot of emotion that comes up with that. And you can feel alone in the journey. Your friends might not agree with you, or the thing just felt so good in what you were doing in the first place. So many different things come up, so many different emotions, and you have to release those emotions. The fourth step is to build up your confidence. And that comes in so many different ways. And I use in my book, I use lots of prayers, I use scriptures, I use quotes from different people, and I have quotes for myself. And I have tips that you can incorporate those different things. And there's so many different ways to build up confidence. But the fourth step is to build up your confidence. And the fifth step, which is a lot of times is the biggest, is to fight to keep it. Because what happens is when you feel really good about yourself and proud, it's like, oh my goodness, I did it. The very next day, something will happen, and you'll be like, oh my God, where am I? Who am I? I suck. All this stuff, you built up yourself to be so high and so great, and something will come back to bite you in the butt and say, are you really ready for this thing that you say that you want? Are you really as confident as you think you are? And you have to fight to keep that confidence that you built up. And so that's the Feel Better formula.
So, can you kind of give a bit of a description on how you sort of overcame your problem with the Feel Better formula? So, kind of provide an example so people can kind of understand maybe how to begin applying.
The biggest thing that I had to overcome with my Feel Better formula, I go into detail in the book, is recovering from my divorce. For the longest time, my ex-husband was like the very first person that I felt loved by. My first date, my first kiss, person I have sex, and first anything. And I was with that man for 30 years. And he was the only thing that I knew. And so when I got divorced and my identity shifted to who am I if I'm not this man's wife? Who am I if not I'm not even his friend, even his significant other? But before, we were married, we were friends. And so to have this identity shift and have this person that was so essential to my life gone, I was with him more than half of my life. I just didn't know who I was anymore. And so that's the biggest thing that I had to heal from in my book. Lots of different things I've healed from, and I go into detail. Yes, I go into detail for a lot of different things in the book. I share a lot of personal stories as well. But that was the biggest thing. I had to accept that I was no longer that person, because even after I filed for divorce, my heart felt like, okay, what am I now? What do I do now? Who do I talk to now? It was a lot of releasing. It was a lot of accepting. It was a lot of decision making. And it was a lot of building of confidence, and it was a lot of fight to keep it. I did every single step that I have in my book. And the thing is, like, my book is a 30-day journey, but it took me way more than 30 days. And what I also put in this book is that it does not matter how long it takes you. The fact is that you keep going, because there's one thing that I had to learn, and it was like a gut punch. And it's like I healed from different things, and I would get to a better place emotionally in my divorce. And then I would just be like, but who am I? I'm still alone, and I'm still this, and I'm not dating, and I'm not doing this. It was a constant mind struggle. So I had to learn how to tell myself new things, learn how to tell myself a better story. I had to learn how to pray for myself. I had to learn how to read the Bible in a way that would fill me up. I had to learn how to read other books in ways that fill me up. I had to learn who I was without this man. And that is the biggest thing that I did with my Feel Better formula, is learning who I was without another person. And because I am still single, I am still divorced. The thing is recognizing that in this moment, my identity is always going to be God's daughter. So it's like I had to learn that piece so that that can be the new foundation, because where a person was my foundation, God is my foundation now. And so it's just like, and that's the foundation that never changes. So there's so many different people that struggle from identity of, a different person, whether it's a parent, and the way they feel about a parent, and they feel like the parent is the identity, or it could be, a husband that they're getting over. But there's so many different times we have our identity based on people. We are codependent on people, especially if we had a problem with childhood. We want to latch on with people. We just want to do that. And so that's the biggest thing that I had to learn how to do, was let him go. And now that we can actually have conversations, and co-parent our children. So it was just like, it was a massive shift for me to let that go. Massive, massive shift.
So that must have been very tough going through that divorce and sort of moving on to becoming more independent. And I was thinking here, when you dealt with that trauma of, that divorce, what were you feeling when that that actually happened at first? What was the toughest part about dealing with that trauma?
I would say the loneliness and the self doubt, the worry, the negative thinking, just feeling like I'm worthless. Because there's a scripture in the Bible that says, "He that finds a wife findeth a good thing." And for a long time, I was just a wife just because I wanted to be his good thing. I wanted to be somebody's good thing. And when I filed for divorce, and even when we were separated, I didn't think I was a good thing anymore. So it was so many different emotions that came up with that. And I had to let myself know that even though I'm not a wife to anyone, I am still a good thing. But it takes what you choose to tell yourself. But when you've told yourself trash for 50 years, is a very difficult thing to shift. It's just habit. So I had to get myself some new habits.
So, how did you sort of begin to write your book? Because writing a book is a big deal. Were you self-published? Did you work with a publisher? What were the steps and stages that sort of guided you to writing this book? And were there any things holding you back, motivating you, etc.?
It took me 2 years to write my book. I did work with a publisher. Her name is Almina Mays, and she's with Create Your Reality Publishing. And the things that came up for me, it took me 2 years because I was filled with self-doubt. I was scared to write the story about my ex-husband. I was scared to write the story because, I was scared to write all of my stories. I was scared to put myself out there, because in my book also I have walk it like I talk it, and because the book it's either a quote or scripture. It's 30 days, and each day has either a quote or scripture, explanation of that quote or scripture, a motivational quote that correlates with it, a tip how you can incorporate it into your life, a question about how it applies to your life so that you can think about it, you can journal about it, discover something, is self-discovery. And then there's a prayer. Well, no, before the prayer, it's a walk it like I talk it, where when I applied all those things for that day, how it affected my life. What did I do? Here's an example of me walking through this thing. And then a prayer on, to cover you on how you can, feel better. And so for all those days, I kept going back and forth. I'm not this person. I'm not ready for this. People won't believe it. It's not going to be enough. It's not as good as hers. All of these doubts came up. All of this imposter syndrome came up. All this comparison came up. And every time it came up, I was just like, no, I won't bother with it. And then it was just like, you got to do this thing. You've got this thing. God put it on your heart. Put it out there, And it makes Amazon bestseller for 2 days. So it's just like, wow, this is awesome stuff. So yeah, it was definitely a journey. And it was definitely a journey of me knowing that I'm enough and me knowing that my story is enough. And it's enough to help people that have been through just different things. Because I talk about different things. I talk about being molested in the book. I talk about my divorce. Mostly it's about my divorce. And it's about where I am. It's talked about my dating life, because even dating after divorce and dating after 50, it's a whole nother thing. So I just talk about a lot of different things that I experienced that a person that has trauma would experience, and how we just look at ourselves as trash. It's like, and it's not true. It's just all kinds of lies that you tell yourself because that's what you're used to telling yourself. So I just, my hope is to help people through that, and that they can see themselves as better and see themselves as valued and treasured and loved and adored.
So, what type of example do you sort of want to be for your kids when they grow up? Do you sort of help them and sort of guide them using these same teachings as well? Do you think you also might want to focus your audience on the children, or is it mainly just women, maybe around the adult range?
It's two different questions. The first one is, what kind of role model do I want to be for my children? My children have seen me at the lowest. Nobody has seen me as low as my children. And my children also have the benefit of seeing me at my highest as well. So the role model that I want to be for my children, my children have seen me at my lowest, and they've seen me at my highest, and they see me making my journey, and they see how I do it. And my son told me one thing when he was 20, that I was there for them emotionally whenever they needed me. And I've been through depression throughout my whole parenting journey. I've been through depression, I've been through anxiety, I've been through suicidal ideation, I've been through all of that. And they witnessed all of that. But when they needed me, I was there for them emotionally. So the role model that I am for them is to give them hope, is to give them that even though you have been through all kinds of hell, you can claw your way and you can get to the mountaintop. And they have seen that with me. And they have just witnessed it with me, and they see that it's a continual journey. So that's the role model that I want to be. I think a child that has been through trauma, it just depends. My book talks about adult experiences, but I'd say that my target audience, I think, is like from 45 to 60. But anybody that struggles with identity, teenagers struggle with identity. If a teenager is ready and a teenager is willing to do the work, because the book is not just a book that you just read and get inspired by. It's a book that asks questions, that has you going deeper, that has tips that you apply to your life. If the person is ready and the person is willing, it will help the person. But if a person is just like, that's not, quite ready, it's not going to resonate. But like for a child, I don't think they would resonate, because a child needs to be talked to on a child level with pretty pictures and like that kind of thing. And it's not that kind of book. Now, like a 20-year-old that's going through something, I think she can relate to it too. But it's predominantly, I think it's like people, like I'm a 70s baby, and I think 70s babies can identify with everything that's in my book. Everything.
Okay. So that was definitely a very good answer. And I think as we continue on with this, I'm just interested to know, like, when you finally began to push out this book, what was your favorite type of feedback you would receive? What type of response were you expecting from others? Did you like that attention you were getting?
My favorite feedback has been that it blessed them. The first feedback that I got was from a friend who said she didn't even know she had trauma until she read my book. Like,
Wow.
what? She says, yeah, I didn't know that was trauma, because I also include in the book, was one of the other traumatic experiences I had was when I was in 8th grade. I was moved cross country, away from my friends, away from my family. And I moved with my mother. So I had family, but I left a majority of my family. And so it was just like a culture shock. And when I was in 8th grade, I went mute. I chose not to speak because I was from New Jersey, and I moved to Georgia, and the kids criticized my accent. And because they laughed at me, It was, and it was like it was a form of bullying, but it wasn't like they weren't. I was bullied in New Jersey, but the laughing at me in a group setting was traumatic, and I stopped talking. And I was the kind of kid that loved school. I thrived in school, had straight A's all the time, but I stopped talking. I went mute for like a year. I didn't speak in class. And so it was a very big deal for me, a very big emotional trauma. So moving cross country, and especially if you were in a place that you're moving because somebody else wants you to move, it's not something that you deserve. Because you can just go move cross country and be like, oh, I'm inspired. I want to go to California or something like that. That wasn't the case. It was just like I moved kicking and screaming. My friend said, I didn't even know that was trauma. That would explain so much, you know? And so that's one of the reasons, the things that I've gotten, that it blessed. A woman said that it blessed her after the loss of her husband. It really supported her. One person said that it identified with me sharing so much of my pain, helped them see that they weren't alone. And of course, I've gotten the I'm proud of you for sharing and putting it out there. And that, you know, my picture is so vibrant and I look so happy, I'm at peace, and I want to bless all kinds of people. But I think the biggest one was when she was saying how it helped, and she hadn't read anything that hit her heart as heavy in such a long time. So I've gotten lots of wonderful comments from it.
Now, when people have read this book, you know, and they maybe changed their lives, you know, what are some of your best client, you know, feedback success stories that you may have?
I think feedback success stories is when people see themselves as differently and that they can actually hope for more, and they learn that reaching out and that learning that they're not alone. Because a lot of things with trauma survivors, we feel like we're alone on so many different things, and it's just a trick of the enemy to make us think that we don't have anybody support us. Because it's one thing to feel, you know, low and alone, but it's another thing to feel low and with people. Because when you're with people, those people can let you borrow their faith for a little bit of time just to help lift you up and just pull you up. But when you're low and you're alone, you can feel like you're at the bottom of the well and all you can do is look up and see no light. You can claw at the side of the well and then just feel like you can't get up. So you just sit there. You don't even try anymore after all that clawing and doing. But if you are low and you're surrounded by people, you can have somebody lift you up and you can feel like you're being lifted up. If you're low and alone, it's a whole nother story. And so that's what my book helps you do, to see that you're not alone and you have support.
So you mentioned sort of this being alone, sort of being low.
Mhm.
How did you sort of begin to find that comfort circle or that company? Because I think you mentioned, as I was listening closely, your kids was part of that circle. Was there anyone else in particular that you may have found that sort of helped you through that? And how can other people sort of find those types of people that could do that for them as well?
God, God
Hmm.
said, I've met so many people that say, oh, I prayed for a circle like this. I prayed. I did not pray for that. I never prayed for that. I asked God to get me out. I asked God to show me me. I asked God to help me. And I was in so many different times. I've been in a fetal position on the floor, just crying, felt alone. And I just asking God to help me and deliver me. Just praying and fasting over myself for different things. But I never asked for a circle. I never asked for a circle. But He has sent me. I have multiple circles, multiple circles. Multiple circles of women that lift me up. A circle of coaches, I have a circle of friends. God has sent me a very good friend who's a therapist. You know, my therapist, you know, my coach. I mean, he sent me lots of circles. And so I'm really blessed in that area. And how I suggest that other people do it, I suggest that you can pray for it. And they can use me because I have a safe space. I have a way of creating a safe space for a person. And just by my willingness to share my story and letting people know that I'm there and I'm supportive and I'm open and I'm creating my own. People can also look to support groups. There are a lot of 12-step programs. There are different support groups that they can Google. There are different church groups, different small groups within churches. There are all different kinds of things. There's one thing about now and the internet. You can use the internet for evil, and you can also use the internet for good. You can use that to reach out and to see, especially there are Facebook groups of like a lot of different things that you're struggling with. You can put that in the Facebook for a group and search it and seek things out. But there are lots of different groups that you can get yourself into that can provide that kind of thing. But also, but this prayer and just asking God to guide you in the right direction. Because one thing is like when you Google all these places, like, oh, which one do I choose? Let him show you the right thing.
So, do you have any advice for other people, maybe when they're dealing with coping mechanisms, or maybe some strategies to sort of deal with their own trauma, their own types of situations right now? What I'm thinking of is perhaps maybe they're going through a specific issue. Maybe they're going through an episode of trauma, or maybe they're going through, I don't know, an experience where they might be in denial, as you mentioned before. How do they sort of knock themselves out of that to sort of get back on track?
I think that happens with time because I think that with denial, like I said, it's a beautiful fantasy until it's not, because it's like you don't even realize that you're actually in denial. You think that your life is your life. You think that it's whether it's oh, this is the best it's going to get, or it's oh, this is great, and you're lying to yourself that it's great, knowing deep in your heart that it's not what you want. But it's different for every person. Some person, they can tolerate that behavior 2 seconds. Oh, I don't like the way this feels. Let me move on. Other people, that if you've had trauma as a child, you want to latch on to a person and you stay in places where you don't feel like your needs are getting met. You don't feel love. You don't feel value. You don't feel treasure. You'll stay in that place for years and years and years just because they hold your hand, just because they say, I love you once a month, just because you have sex with them once a month, just because they're doing something to let you hold on. And you can stay in that place for 30 years or more. People stay in that place for 60, 70, because that's their choosing, because that's what's comfortable. And if you decide to do that, that's your decision. But it really, really depends on the person and what they have. And it depends on the circle that they surround themselves and what they put in their minds and their bodies and their spirits. Because you can be inspired to watch watch a sermon on a Sunday. It's like, oh, that's me. I don't want to do this anymore. But then when it comes, like I said about the decision, but when it comes time to decide, what am I going to do? I don't like it, but this feels safe. This is all that I know, and then they can decide to stay. But it's decision. It's whenever the person is ready. I mean, because it's very different for lots of people. But I think it's necessary for anybody to have their life to change. It's necessary. But some people don't want to change. They don't want to do the work that's required to do that. And so, but that's why it's like I have no judgment when people, because I was in that place for so long that I was in that place. I mean, I put it in the book. I says, that long after the paper was signed, long after the ink was dry on those divorce papers, I was still married to that man in my heart, in my mind. I was chained. It was just like, what's he thinking about? What's he doing? Why does he don't want to talk to me? It's like, that was my thoughts constantly for years after, and it was just like, it wasn't until I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. So there is no magic thing that it takes. And sometimes it's that right person. Some people, it takes a long ass time. And it took me a long ass time. I had no connection with the man, no conversation, and was still drawn and mind blown and gone for a long time. So it could take a long time. And it was God sending me people to shake me and my kids to be like, oh, what's going on? I mean, it took a long time. So I really do think it's God. And it's just like when you can just get things lined up, because I've seen people that are older than me and they're still in that same place. And there is no judgment. I have no judgment. My heart goes out and I pray for them, but it's whenever the person is ready. There's another thing that says when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, Whenever the person is ready is when that thing will happen, because it's not the easiest thing. It's really not, because that decision piece, and because of so much emotion comes up. It's like when you decide I'm going to move on, I'm going to do this, so many things come against you, so much stuff. They'll call you back and say, hey, you want to hang out, or you're not ready for this. And you tell yourself all these lies. so much comes, So it's just like a switch. And then you have to make the choice to feed yourself stuff. And that's the other reason that I have my book, is to help you feed yourself stuff. You have to be willing to go through this thing. It's not a pleasure cruise. It's not a pleasure trip. It's not. And anybody that tells you is a whole lie, But for me, because my root started so early, ages 3 and 4, because it was so early. And I told myself lies for so long. It's been a journey. And I speak positivity that, I'm going every day and every way I get better and better. But I have to choose to feed myself stuff. If I don't choose to feed myself positivity, if I choose to just let everything happen like it's going to happen, I would still stay in that same space. I have to be very intentional with my mind and very intentional with my heart. So to say, magic thing for a person is intention, but they have to be ready. The person has to be ready, because otherwise they'll just be spinning their wheels. It's a journey. It really is a journey.
Excellent. It's a journey. I think, again, this was an amazing interview. I definitely learned quite a bit. And I'm just curious, how can people sort of reach you? And are there any last words you would like to say to the audience?
People can reach me on Instagram. I am Kesha Chanel. On TikTok, I am Kesha Chanel. I feel better already. That's me. On Facebook, I am Kesha Chanel Palmer, and it's Kesha, and Chanel like the perfume, Chanel. On LinkedIn, which I'm trying to build up, so follow me on LinkedIn for sure. It's I am Kesha Chanel on LinkedIn. The book is fantastic and wonderful. You can buy my book, but then I also have a freebie, and it's called 7 Steps to Feeling Better About Yourself. When you go to my Instagram, click the link on my bio, and I think it might be the second thing on there, 7 Steps to Feeling Better About Yourself. It'll be, yes, it's free. It's a free 7-day guide, to get on my email list so you can continue to receive encouragement from me. But that'll get you on the email list, and that'll get you getting in there. Oh, and the other thing is I have a challenge coming up. Definitely want to get on. Oh, and that's me on Amazon. But use the link, not necessarily on Amazon. Amazon's great. Amazon's quick. But buying it from me, I prefer that you buy it from me. And then also I can put you on my email list. I won't know who you are if you buy it from Amazon. Even though that's nice and you'll get the healing, but at the same time, I would like to stay connected with you. So there's another link that I can do you. But yes, and it's in the bio on Instagram. But yes, I'm having a challenge come up, 5-day challenge starting on October 9th. And if you get on my email list, I can keep going on about the challenge, and it's a free challenge. It's free, 5 days. You'll be going through with me through my book on how to feel better about yourself and your identity as daughter, your identity, or even a man as a son. You can go through with me with that too. Because I do have guys that follow me that have been through codependency with their wives, and because they have childhood trauma, they stay longer than that was necessary. They're not treated that well. But yes, I would like for y'all to join my challenge. I think that'll be a wonderful blessing to you so that you can start this healing thing. You can start it and get started and going, especially if you've already got the book. We can go through it in 5 days. It's going to be fantastic and life-changing.
All right. Well, again, thank you for being on the show. This has really been a privilege.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So, this is the Jimbo Parish Show. I'll see you all next time. Thank you for watching.
Bye.
I'm currently working on a passion project that I'm really excited about, but I need your help to bring it to life. We'll be launching soon our very own Jimbo Paris Academy, and this is going to be about aspiring creators and creating concepts. Thank you for your support. I'm sharing free bonus content to supporters, so let's make some amazing content together. Our affiliate partner, LifeWork Systems, focused on helping create a better collegial environment, looking at the mental health of business workers, business employees, and overall bringing the business up. Thank you for listening to the Jimbo Parish Show.